What do a speaking coach, a strategy consultant, and a mental fitness coach have in common? Sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But honestly, it's all about finding out what people really do in their jobs. The stories, the struggles, the coffee breaks. The real stuff you won't find in a job title.
Welcome to a space where we sit down with people from all kinds of careers, have a laugh, and dive into what makes their work meaningful. Whether you're looking to learn something new or just here for a good story, let us be your guide. I'm Geoff.
And I'm Charlie.
And let's get casually bro! Yay! Today, we're sitting with Irene Anggreeni, a mental fitness coach for leaders. She deals with stress, self-sabotage, interpersonal conflicts. She's a facilitator and a speaker. She's also an active leader in the Toastmasters organization. Irene, I'm very pleased to have you today. Can you please tell us who you are, what you do, and how you got there?
Oh, thanks for having me, Geoff and Charles. Who I am, I think you sum it up. My name is Irene Anggreeni from Indonesia originally, and I live in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. I met Geoff actually via Toastmasters a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's amazing like what has happened since then. And what was your other question again? Like I need to tell you who I am, what I
How
do.
you got there?
How I got here? Yeah, a lot of diligent work. Yeah, yeah. For context, yeah, Charles also introduced me. My title is mental fitness coach. I think that's an awesome title. And how I get here? Yeah, the string of things that Geoff mentioned, it was something I experienced myself actually. So I have firsthand experience with all those like, oh yeah, kind of stress. And in my case, it's yeah, to the extent that I had some mental health struggle myself. And through my own recovery and discovering also what works for me, in addition to kind of what's available from the professional support, I also need to build my own yeah, my own way, my own practice of well-being. And that's actually that inspired me to keep going, and then to yeah, to at some point also have a career switch, because I initially came as an engineer from Indonesia to here to the to Europe. But because of this personal journey, personal transformation, then yeah, I'm now working as a coach, supporting others going through these problems that is really familiar to me, and I think also to a lot of people I meet in my circle.
That's incredible. We have a strange circumstance
Mm,
of the three of us here. We all came from highly technical fields, and now we're working in things that are slightly more malleable, right?
mm,
The idea of how do you work interpersonally with someone? How do you create something that might not exist inside of a relationship with someone that wasn't there before, right? Um, I'm really curious because Geoff and I have our own stories, but in terms of your background in engineering, it doesn't feel like there's like a direct connection to, I guess, this idea of mental fitness, mental well-being. What was the spark for you that kind of got you interested initially into that field?
mm. Yeah, I remember those days when I was I was software engineer. So I did my bachelor in computer science in Indonesia, and then I moved to Europe, to continue my studies, and also already in a more maybe human, the human aspect of software engineering, let's say, like in human computer interaction. And later on, I also learned more about the design process. So I guess subconsciously, I probably were already uh, longing, or was kind of like searching, like more understanding about what is it about being human. Why do we behave like the way we do, and especially that applies more to myself, because since I was young, I was already a bit like, kind of very sensitive, very melancholic sometimes. And there are a lot of things that I feel so deeply. So I wanted to understand myself. But when I was, kind of having my studies, my career in a very technical field, I felt also at some point like it's like, oh, yeah, these emotions, all the things I felt like didn't have any outlet. Like there's no way I could understand it in such technical or analytical way. Um, but then on top of that, also there's the personal struggle, of course. So like, yeah, what I mentioned earlier, like that I was dealing with my own stress, with my own anxiety as well, like, and I was a young professional in a foreign country, and that made me feel so insecure as well, like, oh, like, when will they find out I know very little about this, or I'm an imposter, and then I will lose my resident status, I will get fired, and I will have to find somewhere else to live. All those catastrophic thinking, and that was a bit of my old negative pattern, that got me also into a very dark places. um so it was not like it was not so easy to pinpoint like what was exactly the spark. But if I could say, like, the biggest factor is my own personal struggle, because I felt like I was, in the technical field, or in the field of, or the job that I did back then, I felt I couldn't bring my whole self, who is very sensitive, kind of with a lot of emotions. And um yeah and that was, I think, the major push for me to discover more about the world of emotions and relations, and so on.
Wow,
I'm
Irene,
curious.
we share so much in common.
Mm,
Software engineering and focusing on technical stuff, but having issues personally. For me, it was related to being extremely shy, to have social anxiety, to have trouble to communicate. And I also felt this thing of not feeling completely myself.
yeah. Oh,
So now you are teaching people. So as I also teach social skills, but before teaching, of course, there was a long process of dealing with those things, understanding and developing strategies in order to overcome those. Can you
yeah.
tell us a bit more about this specific time when you started to really focus on dealing with those difficult things you had?
When I started dealing with it, it was actually, oh, yeah, thank you so much for sharing about your journey, Geoff, because I'm also reflecting, okay, like this, you mentioned about, not being yourself. That's also what I felt like always putting on a mask, like I'm a professional, and like um unfazed by anything that happened, like inside or back home. um so when I really started seriously, kind of to work through this emotion, to work with my own inner self. The trigger was really not pleasant. Like, I had some sort of like maybe a chronic burnout, which I didn't know back then. Like, oh, what is this? I felt like everyone is maybe as miserable as me. It's been going on for a
Oh,
while. And uh, to the point, I was already searching for professional support back then. But because I was really good at putting on the mask, that they didn't take me so seriously. You know, they're like, you're probably okay. You're still functional. You still can go to work and so on. So you know that that was a bit of yeah, kind of. I had to really champion my needs. I had to advocate for my own needs back then. Um, and when when finally I got the like the official diagnosis, like I was diagnosed with clinical depression. So this was back in more than, when was it? Maybe like 12, 13 years ago. So it's been quite a journey back then. But then because of this, like I felt like, oh yes, finally someone acknowledged my struggle, my really my misery, like. And for me that was maybe the turning point also, because um kind of recognizing as well, okay, so this is serious. Like, like I really need to do something, and I've been trying to to do something to get help for that. But um but with the kind of the official diagnosis and so on, like it feels a bit of like a relief as well. And then that opens the way for acceptance, like, okay, so yeah, this is like like where I am at the moment. um what am I going to do about it? And of course there's then many therapy sessions ensued after that. But also what I realized, I'm generally quite, maybe that's also mentality, being an expat here. I'm generally really self-sufficient, so I really want to be self-reliant. So that's why I'm trying not to be dependent on therapists and so on. And I was eager to find my own, my own ways, like how can I help myself. So it's brought me like to, quite some adventures, you could say. Like, I was discovering also, I think the first thing that really helped me was um, practicing mindfulness. And I'm forever grateful that I found the community back then, like in my, deepest, my deepest misery. I was able to somehow connect with the Plum Village mindfulness community. And that's where I got, maybe like the first basis on the long journey towards healing. Because that's the first time that I start to acknowledge, like okay, like there's a lot of, maybe, a lot of harsh judgment towards myself, really harsh self-critic that was making me even extra miserable already, like, with all the things that's going on. And I was completely in my head, like always suppressing, or like uh, kind of not acknowledging my emotions. And because like I discovered mindfulness, that gently starts to make me realize, like, okay, there's no use to keep on putting the mask and to keep suppressing the emotions. So like, kind of to open that up also, like in in spaces that I feel safe, like including my therapist, but also with maybe with the community back then that I know I can trust. I don't know if I went off tangent here. Jeff, was that my, yeah?
No, this is incredible.
Okay.
I have such a deep and profound appreciation for people who talk about their own mental health struggles, because it is eye-opening for people who have lived under a certain kind of um, perception that acknowledging mental health struggles is removing agency from your ability to change your circumstances, right? It's,
Mm.
if I'm diagnosed with depression, I'm always going to be depressed. I'm always going to be that person who has that diagnosis and that level of I guess kind of attachment to that
Mm.
mental illness. But the reality is very clear that most, if not all people, go through a traumatic amount of uh, issues with undiagnosed mental health conditions.
Yeah.
And even then, um, mental health can be about as flexible as any other type of health, right? I mean, if
Mhm.
you get a cut on your finger and you're rolling around in garbage and the finger gets infected, right? Does that infect? It might take a long time for that infection to clear with lots of antibiotics and lots of help from a doctor, but that doesn't mean the finger is useless now. So I guess, with this kind of perception in mind, with this kind of context for how you came to be where you are, I'd love to shift the focus into how do you help people with this, right? It seems like such a difficult thing to acknowledge your own emotion, to acknowledge your own, I guess, kind of need for help.
Mm.
Where do you start?
Mm. Wow, that's really beautiful question that also shift my own reflection. Like, oh no, how did I? Where do you start? I found like there is the power in um, there's this saying like now I'm connecting this with a leadership, which is also about kind of thought leadership when it comes to mental health, and it is about being daring and courageous enough to be open and vulnerable. That okay, that yeah, we can have this conversation, like that I am open about, that it's not all rosy in my life, and that it is okay. You are not broken, even if you open up. Like, okay, there's, like, yeah, I have like this diagnosis or whatever, or maybe undiagnosis, but I'm just struggling a lot emotionally, mentally, and yeah, to open up that conversation also, yeah, creates maybe a lot of trust and safety so that yeah, other people who may be struggling, like they feel invited. They are not forced to tell like, oh, I have this, I have that, but they feel invited and they feel safe also to share that. Okay, like that. That's also yeah, maybe a familiar struggle. Um, so yeah, first, like there's a lot of power in opening up, but to really start from yourself. Kind of like how do you show up? Like, do you show up also in a way that aloof, or like, oh, or with the facade that I'm all good, or are you also daring to be open and vulnerable? And then secondly, yeah, kind of, from your own experience, like I think it's something that's not acknowledged enough. Like we all have our invisible burden, let's say, like even if everything seems perfect on the outside, but for sure, like we all have, yeah, something we face, like something challenging, maybe something traumatic, um, and to really embody that empathy, instead of like maybe, yeah, shutting people off, or rushing to judgment as well, or if you have this diagnosis you must be this and this and that and so on. So to really just be empathetic and be maybe a listening ear, either you as a friend or as a maybe as a, yeah, as a, yeah, as a boss, or yeah, I mean, in my case, like, that's what I do professionally, so I do listen to what people find as a challenge in their life. And yeah, thirdly, that's really like the foundation where the work can start is, yeah, to really start with awareness, like, okay, where is this, where is the root of this suffering, let's say, of this challenge and this issue. And yeah, everyone has perhaps like their own unique path, like how they resolve that. But the way that I support people is, yeah, by building their mental fitness. Because like what you said, Charles, like, okay, I had my mental health episode, like I had yeah, an illness, like a clinical depression. But then like once I recovered from that, it doesn't mean that the work is done. Like we need to, just the same as we have our physical fitness, we do our exercise, we take care of our nutrition and so on. Yeah, that that we stay healthy, we stay fit. So it's the same also with our mind, that we develop our mental fitness. And yeah, that's an ongoing work that yeah, I think can really help people, especially who have a mental health history, or they have like struggled in the past. Yeah, to really bring themselves even forward, to empower themselves even more. Because it is okay. A mental health struggle doesn't need to define us, doesn't need to limit us. That actually gives a lot of opportunity to learn about ourselves, about our boundaries, and also to be even more compassionate to ourselves and also towards others.
It's I think all of those points are incredibly important, but I kind of want to wrap around to get a better understanding of a term that's been used multiple times in this conversation, mental fitness. How would you define that? Because I think there's so many different ways someone could, I guess, imagine how you do it, but you know, if I'm imagining physical fitness, it's lifting weights, it's creating a like a manufactured struggle that hurts, and then it makes things easier later down the line. But that almost feels a little bit traumatic in terms of imagining it for your mental well-being. I just want to get your take on it and understand
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad that you asked, because I'm already like, oh, mental fitness. Yeah, I know it. So sometimes I remember now. I need to explain it, perhaps to go back again. What is the definition of that? So yeah, what you mentioned also really triggered me, Charles, because you mentioned like physical fitness is we create manufactured struggles. But yeah, in real life, the things we face, like um uh that already by default, there's always things that happen to us that create maybe yeah, some mental or emotional struggle. Yeah, I think like stress has been thrown around a lot. I think it's something that we are very familiar with. um so mental fitness is really about our capacity to deal with life's challenges. Yeah, whatever it is, like a challenging situation or conflict, or maybe like, yeah, mounting deadlines and so on, all these, um, with more resilience and more positive mindset, instead of allowing ourselves to get really stressed out, really frustrated, and like being very negative about our yeah, what happened in our life. So that's yeah, how I would define mental fitness. And it is based on neuroscience research, that kind of mental fitness is something that we can train, we can build, and there are certain mental muscles that we can continue develop in our day-to-day activities.
Well, Irene, there is so much stuff into this. I would like to talk about a few of the things that you mentioned previously in the discussion. So now I'm going into a monologue. If you're
Oh,
listening to this and you and you and you want to skip it, you can jump 5 minutes in the future. There, so there's something that you said at some point when you shared how the difficulties that you had, and then you saw a therapist, and the therapist told you you seem to be fine because you can work. You're
mm,
functional. And this seems to be everywhere. You have a mental health issue if you cannot do anything. If even the most basic stuff is
mm,
impossible for you, that's when you have a mental health issue. But what is there for all those people who
mm.
have barely something more, who
Yeah,
face a lot of difficulties? Oh yeah, it's not impossible, but I'm dying every day.
yeah,
What is there for them? Is that the only thing, or is there more? So yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question now. Um, what can we expect?
mm,
What's the aim? And also not some ideal thing. Maybe it's not possible to be very happy and fulfilled and meaningful all the time, but either some reasonable goal that we can sustain over the long run and
mm,
that is achievable for everyone.
yeah. I'm glad you circled back on this, Jeff, because yeah, that reminds me as well. I wanted to really acknowledge like mental health struggles is it comes in spectrum. Like it's not like okay, like you only have mental illness if you are completely like just unable to do anything and not even to go for a shower or to cook your meal. Um, even when I was in clinical depression, and I think that that might be the experience of some of our listeners here, like, yeah, there's this feeling of survival, like, okay, I just, uh, yeah, I already, use up all my energy just to show up, as a professional at work, but then like coming home, you just crash. That's it. I cannot do anything more. I have no energy left or whatever for cleaning my house or doing any social activities or doing my hobby because yeah, it's just like energy is depleted. And um but what can we expect? Maybe I to paraphrase this question, um yeah, kind of what to look out for. A simple measure, especially in the context of mental fitness, which is really about, yeah, whether you are able to deal with life's challenge with more positive mindset, with resilience, with also kindness and compassion to yourself instead of the negative response like frustration, anger, and so on. So maybe a good way to yeah to simplify, like to check in with how is your mental fitness or how is your mental health is how much or yeah what is the proportion of your positive emotions compared to your negative ones, like say throughout the past 24 hours, or like maybe like if you keep a journal, maybe like you have a sense of in the past 2 weeks, maybe like like how yeah how much of my time am I feeling positive emotions compared to when I'm feeling negative. And if the negative ones are overpowering you, then I think that that's already yeah a sign like, hey, you need to do something, buddy. Like you don't need any diagnosis. You do need to start yeah kind of like uh, being aware and also learn like what are the resources, what are the tools, where are the support, so that you can shift it, that you can transform, like, okay, negative emotions, why are they there, like uh, what is the root cause of it, and what are the tools that fit me to transform it into something that is more positive.
You know, I am a big believer in doing postmortems. I guess that's a kind of a terrible way to put it, but the power of retrospection and introspection can give you a lot of insight into how to change behavior, right? I mean, you mentioned just in terms of black and white, good feeling versus bad feeling, but you can break it down, and I'm sure you do, much more specifically, right? Imagine if the only good feeling you feel during the day is relief.
Yeah.
That is, in my personal opinion, a terrible existence, because that means throughout the entirety of your day, the only time you feel good is when the bad thing is done.
Oh la la. Oh, this meeting is cancelled. Oh, I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But
it's usually also very short, right? Like the sense of relief, it's very short, and it's
very,
like
very short. Yeah.
small
But then,
portion. Yeah.
and then even on top of that, it's something that, if you took stock in, if you took, a real count over that level of context, you could probably tell yourself, like, okay, I feel like I'm surviving, but maybe that's not the life I want to live. Maybe
No.
this isn't where I want to be. And if so, like, well, how do I change it? Right? So many of us experience this constant level of stress. And then when we're notified of it, either through maybe like a therapist or a loved one, or generally it's someone who is either incentivized to care about you, then you kind of like, you have to sit down and you have to think, like, is this the actual way I want to live?
Yeah.
And if not, then you have wonderful resources like yourself, like therapists, like job coaches, like public speaking coaches and strategists, and a whole host of different people that can come to your aid. But that's only if you know that you have the problem.
Yeah. Yes.
I think with that in mind, though, I mean, we talk about the metric of which we use to change things, and the identity, right? The how we find it, and how we don't let it consume us. But I'm really curious to know about the behavioral changes. So, like, it seems like there are a lot of different ways that you can kind of scrunch and like flatten out your own like mental capacity here. But what are like some of the most effective ways that you found in your time in practice?
Yeah. First of all, Charles, like, yeah, I really want to acknowledge that indeed, like, kind of, you mentioned about all the different emotions. It's positive, negative. It's like very rough generalization. Of course, like the more granular, or the more, if you have high emotional intelligence, you probably could name your emotions. But a lot of people also, like if you ask them, like, yeah, what are you feeling? They probably only know as far as, oh, I feel good or I feel bad. So, and and then indeed, like, there's the self-awareness also includes that, yeah, what makes me feel like good or what makes me feel bad, like, and maybe they start learning to name that emotion, to, yeah, to connect the word with the experience what they're having. um and yeah, and that, when when they start to have more awareness, then, or maybe someone close to them nudge them, and then, oh, okay, it's like a wake up call, right? All right, like, I've been in survival. It turns out. And first is to really, to really, really accept you deserve more than just surviving. I think it's our right, that we deserve to thrive, not just, like, oh, like, just this is it. I'm just surviving here. Um, and yeah, some of the tools, like you mentioned about behavior change, that's really also at the heart of it, because um, what happens, like, if we tend to be negative, like always struggling with drama, negative emotion, conflicts, and so on. Um, if we look closer and deeper, it's usually the root cause is these internal patterns. And in the mental fitness framework, like it's called the saboteur patterns, and we all have this. And of course, the one we are all familiar with is this judge, like the harsh critic, like always, making sure we are we are acutely aware of our shortcomings and our mistakes and so on. But there are also other patterns that uh, that can sabotage our efforts even, like maybe we already start to see the way, all right, if I want to change my life, I need to maybe be more comfortable in public speaking, or in my communication. Then I go to a coach, or I search for a coach. But that's also, if people are still being sabotaged with their old patterns, they may not follow through, or they may not, kind of fully fully take in what these resources is able to provide them. And they are, probably also, they are not aware of their own potentials, like, kind of where they can, or that, they can actually grow a lot more than what they think. And with the mental fitness, it works in a very simple way, actually, because we work with the root cause at the root level, and actually really building new neural pathways in our brain. So by developing a practice, new habits, and in a very simple steps, so that kind of is nothing complicated. Everybody can do it. Basically, like the whole mental fitness approach is that if you feel any negative emotions, whatever that may be, that means you are being hijacked by your saboteur. Yeah, so you need to stop. And what do you do when you stop? So you need to energize your sage brain, and you need to quiet the chatter. And there's a technique that is, I also teach this to my client. I do that myself every day. It's called it's called the PQ rep. So PQ stands for positive intelligence. That's where this research is coming from. And rep, just like when you're doing, like your physical fitness exercise, like how many reps you do. So PQ reps. And so once you quiet the saboteur voice and you energize your sage brain, then you really need to invite your own sage power to the picture, kind of like, all right, like from the saboteur, how do I shift that into something that is more constructive, something that's more, more productive, let's say, something more compassionate, perhaps. So these are kind of the operating system of this whole mental fitness. It's like 1, 2, 3.
So if I understand correctly, the first step is to recognize your own patterns.
Yes.
To see what you're doing, to see if you have any things that come regularly, if there are commonalities, seeing how you react to things that happen to you, how you what happens in your mind? What are there things that you're saying to yourself that
Yeah.
puts you down? Or behavioral? Are there things that you avoid every time it happens? Oh, every time I have an opportunity to speak, I fly away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is the first step. It's the awareness.
Yes.
And I think that what you call the saboteur
Mm-hmm.
is it just the voice, or it's also the behaviors?
It's both. So
Mhm.
the behavior is also driven by this inner voice, Jeff. And physically, it also lives in our brain as a neural pathway, because this is like, the behavior is something that we do repeatedly, and it's built up in the brain as a, neural pathways, and it lights up. It's time you do
Yeah.
that same pattern. And that's why, kind of the work of mental fitness is also about building the mental muscles that is more on the sage brain.
Oh, the sage. Yes. So
Yeah.
coming from this, you said that you quiet the saboteur and you energize the sage. So I would like to go a little bit deeper with this
Mhm.
terminology because I'm personally not familiar with it,
Yeah.
and I doubt the people who are listening are familiar with it. So um, could you tell a bit? Is it two processes when you say you quiet the saboteur, and then you energize the sage? Is it two steps, or is it something that so do you need to quiet the negative and then give more energy to the positive, or do giving more positive energy actually is what quiets the saboteur, the negative? Is it a
I'm
how
glad
does
you
it work?
asked this question.
This is
It's
this
gonna
is
be
such
technical.
this is such a classic software development like questions of process.
Of course, it's a parallel process, Jack. And in fact, if you want, we can try that right now. If you want, we can try that for a couple of minutes.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
This sounds
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
incredible.
All right. So let's do. This is very safe to do at home. Your listeners can also do it, but maybe if they are in the car, they are driving, just, be sure that safety first. But okay, if you want, you can close your eyes and bring two fingertips, like rub two fingertips together, like not, just gently and slowly, and bring your all attention to the sensation that you can feel the ridges, maybe the texture of your skin, the dry patch or the calluses, or maybe the moisture there. And now bring the same hand, put on your belly, and simply notice the rising and the falling sensations with each of your breath. And if your mind wanders away, don't worry, don't beat yourself up, just bring it back to observe your breathing, rising and the falling sensation. And now we are using our ears. Like, see if you can hear a sound in your surrounding. Any sound. And even shift closer. Find the closest sound, the most subtle sound you can hear. Nice. You gently open your eyes. Just simply notice an object in front of you. Whatever object that you lay eyes on. Notice any new details. Maybe new colors or the shape or the shadows. And now soften your focus with the diffused open focus. Just look around you. And you can close this exercise when you feel ready. And check in also what you're experiencing right now. I'm curious, you guys, you are very quiet.
Oh yeah, I feel a lot more relaxed. So that's what we did. We quiet the saboteur and we energize the sage with this exercise. Oh, that's a lot more
More
concrete.
tangible. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And yeah, maybe to fill in on that, kind of because you notice as well, because I guided us all to observe physical sensations.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like if your mind starts to think about all other things, like, oh, okay, like come back and observe the physical sensation, whether it's your breathing or what you're hearing or what you see. And that automatically quiets this the saboteur voice. And at the same time, it lights up the part of your brain that is associated with your empathy or your curiosity, your creativity, your wisdom. Yeah, and if we were to do a functional MRI scan, that's what it would show. Like the part of the brain, the neural pathways that is very saboteur, very negative, like, okay, it gets quieter, and then another part of the brain sparks. And that's kind of the PQ rep is this practice. And as you use this more often, then it gets stronger. And then you default more often to that more positive, more energized sage powers.
Yeah, well, indeed,
Wow.
I feel a lot wiser now.
Ah,
So, Irene, honestly, that was a great moment to have this exercise with you, and I feel now more grounded than I was before, more aware. So this is definitely something that I could integrate every once in a while into my life. So no, I'm curious. Can you tell us a bit more about the type of people that you're working with and the type of issues that they might have when they come to you and how it feels, what it is when we work with you? What's the how does it work?
How does it work? Okay, so let's unpack that question. What kind of people? All sort of people actually, but most of the time it's professional. Often the source of stress is something in their work, or but it could also be like in their personal relationships. There's something stressing them out. Yeah, and the feeling that that they're maybe a bit stuck or in that survival, and they know there's something more that they can grow into, but yeah, they're looking for ways, and like, but it has not been successful. And that's usually also uh, yeah, usually what I noticed that a lot of my clients actually, maybe that speaks also to yeah, I'm overgeneralizing here, but maybe to a lot of people, we already know intellectually, right? Okay, you want to be more successful, you want to be more happy, kind of, uh, you know what you need to do more, or yeah, or not do so much. Um, but it's the implementation, like the taking action, and especially yeah, consistent action. That's usually the challenging part, to convert the things we know, the insights, the knowledge, the science. We know a lot about maybe neuroscience or whatever, the habits of successful people, or about emotional intelligence, but to actually apply it in our life, to yeah, to make it part of yeah, our system, our habit. That's the challenge. And quite often it's because we are sabotaging our own efforts. So again, coming back to the saboteur, which is like really the yeah, the yeah, I would say it's the root cause of why we may feel stuck, why we may feel not fulfilled, and yet like taking action towards that fulfillment is so difficult.
I'm constantly reminded of a quote from a dear family friend of mine. He says that the opposite of faith isn't disbelief, it's doubt.
Mm.
And the same way that I believe that people who have this level of self saboteuring, and I shouldn't say people because it's all of us. We all have this level of self saboteuring,
Yes.
but it's not because we hate ourselves, or I should say, at least the majority of us. We don't hate ourselves. We don't want to see ourselves fail. We don't want to really, face plant into the cow manure of our lives, but we are afraid of doing something, getting ridiculed over it maybe,
Mhm.
or even having it not be acknowledged.
Yeah.
One of the most terrifying things for people who build something new or who do something um, for the first time is, yeah, okay, maybe they'll laugh at you, but that's a strong reaction. What if no one cares at all?
Mhm. Yeah.
I love this idea of kind of stripping away these hyper fixated ways of thinking that create these self-saboteur
Mm.
levels inside of you, because when we went through that exercise, it went from, okay, I'm thinking about this podcast and what I'm going to ask next, and then I have a meeting
Mm.
right after this, and then I have to get ready for that meeting, and it stripped away this hypersensitive track of thinking to, that is a really pretty shade of green on this jar in front of me. Why have I never noticed why I like this color of green so much? And it reinterprets it, reintegrates this idea of, yeah, there are wonderful things around me, even if I'm not cognizant of them, and even if I'm a million miles away in my next meeting that's not going to happen for like another 2 hours. The reality is, so many of us get that far ahead, get so far ahead into the process of like, what if they hate me?
Yeah.
That they don't realize I'm doing something really incredible and cool and worth celebrating right now. Um, and I think that that's an absolutely incredible thing that you do for others and that more people should know about. Um, I guess with that in mind, Geoff and I started this podcast because we really value the unique and incredible talents that people bring from all walks of life, all careers and all different backgrounds. But it's not enough to just admire and view them and see them. we want to give our listeners something that they can practice and something that they can do. So we ask all of our guests, what is one skill that has helped you get you to where you are today that our listeners can start practicing or can start integrating into their lives so that maybe they can be as successful as you are?
Hmm. Oh, that question lands very much to my heart. Um, my first thought, like, oh, what is something that's uniquely me? Okay, I'm really sensitive. That's I learned to appreciate. That's my power, my superpower these days. But I think what I've been practicing also with all this sensitivity that felt also back then like a big burden. Why I feel so much is the practice of kindness. And I think kindness is really what sustain our not only our happiness but also our success. And kindness is also um, yeah, maybe the feeling where we arrive to, like when we are able to, yeah, maybe to conquer or to weaken that saboteur. Like you mentioned, Charles, like really, yeah, kind of a strong example. Like yeah, we all had this, we are still having maybe, or tomorrow we will have some of this challenging experience, like some hardships or whatever. um, how do we treat ourselves through all those? Like we can be like really harsh, like with the harsh judge and self-critic, but we can also treat ourselves with compassion, with kindness, with patience, um, and it's not selfish at all, because only from knowing it to ourselves, only then we can give it to others. So that's my one thing. If I have to share one thing, that.
Irene, thank you very, very much. This was a super interesting discussion. I'm sure it will help many people out there. But before we leave, I'd like to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. I really hope that you have a lot of sage power in yourself remaining, because this one it's quite tough. You will have 2 minutes with the magic microphone to share a message to everyone on earth that is living today, but also everyone who's in the future generations who might not even be born yet. And with these 2 minutes, you can share with them your universal message that you want everyone to know about.
So for
You
the
can
present
take,
and the
sorry,
future.
yes, a message to
Wow.
everyone. You can take as long as you want to think about your answer, and then you will have 2 minutes.
Table topic. Where this comes from? I have what 15 seconds to think about my response.
Oh, why does it always come back to Toastmasters?
Can't help it, Charles. That's where
So
Geoff and
while you think, Irene, I would just say a little word about the table topics. So Toastmasters is an organization with clubs all around the world in which you can learn how to speak in front of people. And one of the, or even the most interesting thing that you can do in Toastmasters is table topics. You have a topic completely random, and you have 2 minutes to answer in front of the room. So this is, if you never went to a Toastmaster club, I really, really advise you to do it. Okay, that's it for the for the advertisement.
yeah, it is quite like I feel the sense of responsibility, especially like though it's imaginary, like for the future generation. So I know every day could be a struggle, and sometimes you don't know if you can make it, if you can still put a smile on your face for your loved ones. But there is there is the power within you, there's the wisdom, there's the resource. And you just need to reach inside and recognize and cultivate those powers. And you are probably kind of more concerned with your physical health or physical fitness. You invest a lot in it, doing exercise, like eating the right food, or and so on. But there is also one thing that's important, which is your mind. And your mind can be your best friend, but sometimes it can be your worst enemy. So learn to make friends with your mind and make it your strongest ally. And if you know how to develop your mental fitness, like your resilience, you can conquer any challenge that you face, even if there's most challenging life challenge. You can really tap into your own sage powers and use this to convert whatever challenge you have into a gift for yourself and also for the world. So don't forget that you have that power within you.
Yes, wow, Irene, that's so important because, yeah, of course, if your mind is not working in the right space, how can you do anything else? Seems to be a foundation, a base, and it's not taught at school. If you're very lucky, your parents might give you a few tips about it, but that's it's not very known. We live in a world where we start to know more about how to deal with the brain, but no, this knowledge is so
Mm.
it isn't easily available. So thank you so much for having shared with us the exercise and all your tips and wisdom. If you're listening to this, you will find more informations about Irene in the description of the episode. Also a way to reach her on LinkedIn. Irene, it was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Geoff. And thank you, Charles, for this really inspiring conversation.
And if you're listening to this, you can help us to make the show more visible by sharing it to a friend. That's the challenge I would like to give you. If you know anyone who would benefit from this episode, send it to them. You can change a life. Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace out.